Charlotte's not in this web, but you'll still cry.
And I've got a combination of Lassie meets Sabrina the Teenage Witch. And if you get those references, you're as old as me.
My name is Taylor.
Hi, I'm Chris. Welcome to episode 3 of Commander Role Reversal.
Trace, episode 3. And Commander Role Reversal is a YouTube channel, so please remember to like, subscribe, and comment or share with someone. Anyone, really.
We're going to put the Moxfield Decklists in a link in the description below so you can see the decks that we're talking about today. And Taylor, what decks are we talking about today?
I'm glad you asked, Chris. I'm here to talk about Thantis the Warweaver.
I'm here to talk about Yoshimaru Ever Faithful and Falthis, Shadowcat Familiar.
It's a twofer.
It's a twofer. And as is tradition on this channel, the winner of the matchups goes first. Taylor, did you win this week?
I think I won this week.
I think that was you this week.
Yeah, but darn it if you didn't give me a run for my money, Chris. So for those who aren't in the know, Thantis the Warweaver is a 3 black, red, green legendary creature spider. So with vigilance, reach, and the ability, all creatures attack each combat if able. And whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, put a +1/+1 counter on Thantis the Warweaver. He is a 5/5. He's a big spider.
And he gets bigger. He gets a lot bigger.
Yeah, I noticed definitely a +1/+1 kind of counters thing you had going for this deck, Chris. I really enjoyed it, especially that it was kind of outside of the colors that I typically tend to play, Jun Spiders. So I guess going into this, I was expecting Spider Tribal, maybe, or definitely a goading sub-theme, I think.
Yeah, attacking matters.
Attacking matters.
In this deck, I think.
So succinctly put. But it definitely got there. I mean, as far as how the deck actually performed, sadly, Spider Tribal, this was not. We'll get to that later. But there was definitely a lot of combat manipulation in this, and I absolutely loved it. Kind of one of the things that I enjoyed about it was that it was actually more nuanced than I thought it would be. It wasn't just kind of goad everything, because that ability where all creatures must attack also impacted me. So it was a little bit of a learning curve playing this deck, because there were a couple times where I would drop some mana dorks and then the next turn play Thantis and not tap those mana dorks to play Thantis, and then say, oh shoot, I got to swing.
Guess we're swinging. Or floating mana during combat.
Yeah, which mana burn.
Let's bring it back all the way back to 1997.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think in the execution of that, it was a powerful experience. It definitely, it became very clear that what was advantageous for me to swing into was not reciprocated by my opponents, because typically they would be trying to swing at each other, so they would be killing each other, if not me, because if they swung at me or one of my planeswalkers, my spider got bigger. Or if they did swing at me, then I had ideally a large spider to eat anything that came at it. And there was a lot of support. It felt like a go wide deck a couple times. So how many creatures were in there, Chris?
Oh, there were more than 40 creatures. It was definitely creature heavy.
Oh.
Yeah. The thing that you experience with playing Mana Dorks before combat, I think, is the experience of every other player at the table too. They're like, I don't put this creature on my deck to make attacks. That's not what this is for.
Llanowar Elf, please nerf. the scariest 1/1, but
it makes mana and it attacks. Not at the same time.
It shouldn't. No. But if it's all right with you, I'll just dive into some of the cards that really performed for me.
Love it. Love to hear it.
So starting off with, and going back to it, I promised, there was a little bit of a spider theme in at least one card, and that card was one of my favorites, Arachnogenesis. It's an instant for 2 and a green that reads create X 1/2 or green spider creature tokens with reach, where X is the number of creatures attacking you. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn by non-spider creatures. I love this because it was a fog of war effect. It was playing into the fact that we knew that creatures were going to be swinging. So if they did happen to swing and I didn't happen to have my shields up, I get spiders and my life doesn't change. So thanks.
That's great. Yeah, there is some synergy there. I mean, I love that card, Arachnogenesis. I think it's maybe one of the better fog effects, but in some metas, attacking is not as common, right? So you're holding this fog in your hand, and it's not guaranteed to do much. But when you're running Thantis, and it helps to guarantee that you're going to have some attackers coming at you. And
yeah. And it was so flavorful too. I definitely felt like I was like a War Master, kind of manipulating the board, kind of a spider, if you will, teasing the flies into my web. So I'm creepy. Sorry.
There might be a puppet metaphor there too, right? With all of the strings, right? That's where my mind went.
Well, what did you call the deck again?
War is looming.
Oh, okay. We got there. Moving on, staying with the instant theme, something else that really performed well for me in this deck was Return of the Wild Speaker, which was 4 and a green for an instant with choose one, draw cards equal to the greatest power among non-human creatures you control, or non-human creatures you control get +3/+3 until end of turn. Really lame card, only playable if they had also put Trample into that overrun effect, but I'm kidding. Eldraine was too pushed. But I loved this because I think the floor was, I'm only casting this when Thantis is online, and at worst I'm drawing 5 cards for 5 mana, so good job, Green. It felt good.
Yeah, 5 mana for 5 cards at instant speed at that, with the flexibility of pumping your creatures. That's a rock solid include for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I didn't mention it earlier, but this definitely had kind of a Voltron theme for it going as well. So I consider a Voltron win not necessarily killing an opponent, but if I can at least get the power up to 21 for that one-hit KO, hypothetically, that's the one in my book. So hypothetically, this card could have drawn me 21 cards. I think we got pretty close in one of the games.
Yeah, you were right there. I think it was 21 or right around 21 power. So hats off to you, good sir.
Achievement unlocked.
Achievement.
We'll put it in post. Switching gears a little bit to some of the creatures that I liked in this.
So many to choose from.
But only one that mattered, and its name was Seedborn Muse. Which 3 green for a creature spirit that reads untap all permanents you control during each other player's untap step. It's a 2/4. This felt like the shield enabler, really.
Yes.
Not even counting for like the untap shenanigans with tap activated abilities, or untapping your mana dorks, all that fun stuff. You don't even need to, because it untaps all your lands. What am I saying? But
more mana.
Yeah, the fact that I could swing because I had to with Thantis on the board, and then immediately on the next upkeep, is it just untap step? I'm sorry. Untap all my stuff too. Very empowering to do that on every player's turn.
Yeah, I think Seaborn Muse is great. It really wants like a specific strategy where you want to be untapping your lands, playing a lot of instants, or when you're attacking every turn. That's another good use for the card for sure.
It's interesting that they called it Seedborn Muse because I didn't need to grow to love this card.
He wasn't born yesterday, folks.
Okay, moving along. Before I bore you, let's talk about Ilharg the Razeboar, which is these transitions. We're killing it. 3 red for a legendary creature boar god with trample. There's the trample. Reading, whenever Ilharg the Razeboar attacks, you may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. Return that creature to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. When Ilharg the Razeboar dies or is put into exile from the battlefield, you may put it into its owner's library, 3rd from the top. This is a 6/6. I loved this. This was my sneak attack enabler, and I get the impression that's why you put it in there in a deck that was running 40-something creatures. What am I going to play? You don't know.
It could be anything. Could be a creature coming in sideways. What a weird god card that was.
Yeah, because I mean that when Ilharg the raised board dies or is put into exile, that line is also on the Amonkhet gods, right?
It's on the
or the War of the Spark gods.
Yeah, the War of the Spark, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess they didn't want to bring Perforos into the mix, so we got a boar.
Perforos doesn't mess with Gruul. But I love this because it was the first half of my Wombo number 5 combo with Atali Primal Storm, which is 4 and a red for a legendary creature, Elder Dinosaur. Whenever Atali Primal Storm attacks, exile the top card of each player's library. Then you may cast any number of spells from among those cards without paying their mana cost. 6/6. I wasn't able to do this in the game, but I was hoping I would be able to sneak in that Atali and then steal everybody's stuff.
I think, though, with the Boar's trigger, with Ilharg's trigger, you would skip the attack step with Atali in that case, right? So maybe that is a non-synergy.
A Nambo, number 5. This teachable moment brought to you by, what's the name of our podcast? Commander Roll Reversal.
Commander Roll Reversal.
I'm going to just reverse that back up and just say that I love that card. We did it. But no, seriously, Atali Primal Storm, every time it gets on the board, it's like I love playing it for no other reason than to see everybody's reaction when you play it, because people know if they don't kill that on site, they're about to lose potentially one of their favorite pieces, and at worst, have me cast that against them for free.
Oh,
which I love.
Yeah, it's such a fun card. You do have to attack with it, so you have to untap or give it haste, which is definitely possible being a red card. It's so much card advantage, and you're cheating all the mana costs, assuming you're casting at least 1, 2, or 3, maybe 4 of the spells. Like,
don't even need to untap those mana dorks. But definitely one of, I was able to get it off in the game, an attack trigger at least. So that was satisfying. But I think that wraps up kind of my favorite cards. What about you, Chris? What were some of your favorite cards?
Yeah, thanks a lot. I'm here to talk about not 1, but 2 commanders. Yoshimaru, Ever Faithful. There's a 1 white pip for a legendary creature dog. Whenever another legendary permanent enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Yoshimaru Ever Faithful. It has partner, and it is a 1/1. And the partner for this deck is Falthis, Shadowcat Familiar. 2 and a black for legendary creature Nightmare Cat. Commanders you control have Menace and Death Touch. It's a 2/2. So what I kind of expected going into this was stacking all of those +1/+1 counters, making the dogger bigger than life, and smashing face. I kind of, really was thinking there's probably going to be a lot of legendary cards in here to trigger that effect, as much as you can. I didn't realize that other than basic lands, every permanent was a legendary, and there were no non-permanents either. This was full legendary tribal.
Surprise legendary tribal!
Which means that every time you're playing your land for turn, you're adding +1 counters, and then you're spending your mana on a legendary permanent, and that dog got big real fast.
As Richard Garfield intended. I do enjoy that we both made +1/+1 counter decks.
Yeah.
Kind of inadvertently.
That was unintentional. Yeah. Attacks matter and +1/+1 counters.
Dog versus spider. It's a tale as old as time. Cat dog. Sorry.
The only other power level thing that I noticed is that it is a bit telegraphed when your dog is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and your opponents are getting more afraid that they're next. So it was a little bit of a magnet for removal, but it's only 1 mana to cast. So it's really easy to keep casting the commander over and over again. And of course, Falthis was no slouch either, giving him menace, giving opportunity to swing past. If there were less than 1 creature. But there were a few cards that I wanted to talk about in particular. The first card that came to mind is it's a land. I know, boring. Bear with me here. It's actually a black mana producing land that I think should go in almost every black deck because it's that good. Shizo, Death's Storehouse. It's a legendary land. It has tap, add black, and it has pay black, tap, target legendary creature gains fear until the end of the turn, meaning it can't be blocked except by artifact creatures and or black creatures. So a little bit more evasion to go along with the deck.
Just what it needed. Got to throw a dog a bone every once in a while.
Fair. Shizo's Death's Storehouse comes in untapped and immediately produces a black mana. So there's almost no downside. It doesn't have a land type other than legendary, which does good things for Yoshimaru by triggering that triggered ability. Speaking of evasion, another card that really stood out to me in this deck was 8.5 Tails.
Yes.
What a cool card. White and a white, legendary creature, Fox Cleric, has 2 activated abilities. First one, pay 1 and a white, target permanent you control gains protection from white until the end of turn. And then it also has pay 1, target spell or permanent becomes white until end of turn. It's a 2/2. And so this card has multiple uses in the deck, I think.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. The intention with that one was to make it, kind of ideal for you to be able to swing in with that Doggo Commander, but also in a pinch, because it is telegraphed as a magnet for removal, as a 21/21 pupper, it does change the color of target spell. So, if you're trying to do that... I don't know. Swords to well, that's already a white card. What's a black removal spell, Chris?
Let's go with putting me on the spot. Let's go with Go for the Throat.
There we go.
1 and a black, destroy target non-artifact creature.
Yes. So what if we made that a white spell and then made it not something that our dog cares about?
Yeah.
That was the intention. And I think you were able to pull that on me a couple of times.
Yeah. Great protection piece there. Really, being able to avoid kill spells and anything that's, targeting. But the other really excellent use was to give Yoshimaru protection from white and then making any of the blockers or any of the blockers that you cared about white so that you could get past them and either get in for damage or force blocks that your opponent might not want to make otherwise.
I think you got around my spider that way. You didn't win the game, but you knocked me out.
That's right. That was the one where I got in and did the commander damage thing. That was cool.
Betrayed by the tails.
Well, we had another partner in this deck, Taylor. There were actually 3 partners, which sounds illegal.
It does. Whatever could you mean, Chris?
The other partner that was in the 99 or 98 in this case was Kelith Sunmane Familiar.
That one.
Kelith Sunmane Familiar, 1 and a white, legendary creature horse. Whenever a commander you control attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on it, has partner. It's a 1/1. So just I really like this really cheap creature, but it keeps adding the +1/+1 counters, which is what we're trying to do anyway.
Yeah, if I didn't want to throw in a little bit of black for you, because I know that's a color you enjoy playing, that was actually one of the partner pairs I was considering. Just go full mono white.
That's cool.
Just a tale of a dog and his horse.
It's a different show.
It's a different show
on the Kids Network. So yeah, Kelith's really cool because you play Kelith legendary permanent, add a counter, go to attacks, add another counter. So yeah, really, really, really cool, and keeps adding them over time. So good job.
Thank you.
That was a cool one.
Yeah, we just need a white hardened scales and we're set.
Speaking of making that dog enormous, we also had in the deck a Blackblade Reforged.
Yep.
Blackblade Reforged is 2 mana for a legendary artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each land you control. Equipped legendary creature, pay 3. Equipped non-legendary creature, we don't care about that, but that costs 7. So this just scales with the game over time. Just really makes really whatever you put it on is going to just scale with the number of lands later in the game.
Would you believe me if I told you I put that in there solely so you could cosplay as Sif, the Great Wolf from Dark Souls?
Oh, shout out to Dark Souls.
Let's go.
That's how he's carrying that sword around. I was wondering.
Artorias of the Abyss. I'm going to cry if we keep talking about that, though. So.
Oh, yeah, that is a sad part of the story. No spoilers. We're not trying to do that here if you haven't enjoyed that. There was one other sword in this list
Yep.
that really worked for me. I think I drew it in every game too. Sword of the Chosen. It's a 2-mana legendary artifact. It has tap. Target legendary creature gets +2/+2 until the end of turn. So it's not an equipment.
That makes sense.
Not an equipable artifact, but the play pattern that I enjoyed here was so turn 1 Yoshimaru, turn 2 play a legendary land, add a +1/+1 counter, play Sword of the Chosen, add a +1/+1 counter, tap Sword of the Chosen, give Yoshimaru +2/+2, so he's now 5/5. This is turn 2.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I definitely pulled that off in one game. I think I drew it a little later in the second game, but
Darn.
What a shame.
Oh.
And that was fun. A lot of attacks in those games. So Taylor, as we were playing or kind of looking over the deck list, were there any cards that stood out to you as questions?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked, Chris, because there were a couple. And not to say that I didn't think that they weren't in there for a reason. I just think maybe in the games I didn't necessarily see if there was a specific line of play I should be using those cards for. But the first one was Mirage Phalanx, which is 4 red for a creature human soldier with Soul Bond, which is an old mechanic from Innistrad. Innistrad. Return to Innistrad. You may pair this creature with another unpaired creature. When either enters the battlefield, they remain paired for as long as you control both of them. As long as Mirage Phalanx is paired with another creature, each of those creatures has, at the beginning of combat on your turn, create a token that's a copy of this creature, except it has haste and loses Soul Bond. Exile at end of combat, Mirage Phalanx is a 4/4. I get the impression that this is kind of red good stuff. It is an attacking matter deck, and it sounds like you're making 2 additional tokens every attack step with this. So definitely effective, but was there anything else you had in mind for it?
Yeah, it's a great question, Taylor, because Mirage Phalanx is one of these cards that it combos, pretty easily and can get really powerful ETB effects. And I'm sure with 40-something creatures in there, there's probably something. But honestly, I just wanted an excuse to play this card because I think it's really cool. And I knew we were going to combat where we're using the combat step every turn. So I thought, if there's a good non-legendary creature, go ahead and make 2 of those for your attacks and just get more damage through.
Non-legendary creature? What is that?
I didn't have that problem.
That makes sense. It was definitely a cool card, so that clears that up. The next one was not a creature, but a land, a legendary land. I'm keeping everything together. Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth. Legendary land. Each land is a forest in addition to its other land types. Maybe I just got lucky in the games that I was playing, but I didn't really feel like I had really a drought of forests or anything like that. No problem with fixing. Was there a Cabal Coffers-esque combo with Yavimaya, or was this just everything's a forest?
Yeah, good question. It's really, I think it was really just for fixing.
Gotcha.
In a green creature deck with green creatures that are ramping, like your mana dorks, like your fetch a land to the battlefield cards. It's nice just to be like further ensure that you have that green mana available. So that was kind of the thinking there. But as you were reading the card, I was wondering to myself, are there any cards out there that might give all of your creatures Forest Walk? I know there's some elves that do that, but if you could give all of your creatures Forest Walk and all of your opponents have forests, well, that just means you're getting through with everything.
Profit.
So let us know in the comments if there are any creatures that might give Thantis the Warweaver some Forest Walk, because that'd be cool.
Or don't. I don't want him to use that against me. This last one, Chris, might sound a little familiar, but it's less of a why was it in the deck and more of a why wasn't this in the deck? Karn Silver Golem, which is 5 generic mana for a legendary artifact creature golem. Whenever Karn Silver Golem blocks or becomes blocked, it gets -4/+4 until end of turn. Pay 1 generic target non-creature artifact becomes an artifact creature with power and toughness. Each equal to its mana value until end of turn. Karn is a 4/4. Right off the bat, hear me out. Karn is going to be swinging because he has to if Thantis is on the board. So you don't have to worry about him swinging into anything undesirable because he's got the -4/+4. He's a big boy. But also, why not turn all your opponent's artifacts into creatures that they then need to swing into undesirable situations, and then you've got yourself some artifact removal.
Yeah, that is a great way to use that card. That's beautiful. Would you believe me if I just said I like Karn? No, I like your answer better. That's great. Yeah, get that Soul Ring in there and swinging.
You're tired of me memeing on Karn.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Stay tuned.
I am a little disappointed in myself. You've Karnverted me to the dark side.
Maybe it was a black magic incarnation.
So what about you? I didn't know that you were a yoga professional. You're so flexible with those stretches. Namaste. What about you? Did you have any cards that just didn't make any sense?
Well, there wasn't anything in there that didn't make sense. I mean, they were all legendary, so they definitely
telegraphed
did the thing. But there were a couple of cards in here that I thought were interesting to talk about. That I kind of wanted to hear your perspective on how you kind of pictured them, functioning within the deck. So
sure.
The first one that came to mind was actually Brina the Demagogue. Brina the Demagogue is 1 white and a black for a legendary creature, bird, warlock with flying. Whenever a player attacks one of your opponents, if that opponent has more life than another of your opponents, that attacking player draws a card, and you put 2 +1/+1 counters on a creature you control. It's a 1/3. A lot of times when you play this card, you kind of have to explain to the table what's happening, or kind of figure it out in the moment what's happening. But
yeah.
What did you have in mind?
God bless Strixhaven, first of all. I love those. This was from one of the commander decks, the Silver Quill deck. Honestly, I wish I could say that was an intentional decision to throw it in there. It's an attacking matters deck, because I didn't know that it was going to be relevant. That would have been cool to say, though. Honestly, going into the deck, I don't know if you picked up on it. I tried to set kind of like an artificial limit for what I wanted the deck to do, because I did figure to your point earlier, it is a magnet for removal. And sure, Yoshimaru is only 1 mana. But if he gets removed enough times and frequently enough, that does start to add up. So I wanted you to always still be able to at least recast him and then get at least a +1/+1 counter, whether it's from your land or something that's low cost. All that to say, I had a rule where I believe all but one of the permanents in the deck were 3 mana value or less.
Yeah. I didn't notice that when I was playing, but I noticed when I was looking at it after. Yeah, really low mana curve, which you love to see.
So roundabout answer to your question, it was legendary in Orzhov and 3 mana.
It is pretty good incentive, though. I mean, for your opponents to attack a specific opponent to draw a card, that incentivizes the attacking, and then you get the +1/+1 counter. So it did have definitely a lot of synergy, when it worked. But also, 3 mana value creature. That's a good legendary.
It's a flyer.
The other card that came to mind was really obvious why it was in the deck, but I wasn't sure. And maybe you just answered this, but I wasn't sure why its partners weren't in the deck, so to speak. We've got Helm of Kaldra. 3 mana for a legendary artifact equipment. Equipped creature has first strike, trample, and haste. Pay 1 if you control equipment named Helm of Kaldra, Sword of Kaldra, and Shield of Kaldra. Create Kaldra, a legendary 4/4 colorless avatar creature token, and attach those equipment to it. It's equipped to.
You used to Kaldra on my cell phone. No, I'm so sorry, but Culture Complete this is not, Chris. It was really it was a legendary artifact that fell into the 3 mana, but felt good enough to put into an attacking deck for that Voltron commander.
One of these days I'll complete Kaldra. I will. But honestly, the card by itself, 3 mana equipped 2 for all of those very relevant keywords when you're playing a Voltron deck. That was it did the thing anyway. It was pretty cool. With tens of thousands of cards legal in the Commander format, there's always room for any number of cards were there any that you could think of that you would have put in the deck if you were building?
Only illegal ones.
Oh, we can't have that.
Rule 0, baby.
We can have that.
No, I'm glad you asked, Chris, because this is, I'll just level with you. This is my favorite part of the show because it's so fun
Same.
going through and finding, old cards, new cards, just cards you wouldn't think to include for, specific strategies. But Scryfall and I have become best friends. Curse of Hospitality was my first one. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this curse, but it's 2 and a red for an enchantment or a curse that reads enchant player. Creatures attacking enchanted player have trample. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to enchanted player, that player exiles the top card of their library until end of turn. That creature's controller may play that card, and they may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast the spell. So Thantis makes things attack.
Yeah.
If you don't have your Seedborn Muse out and you don't have your shields up, why not incentivize everybody else to attack someone that isn't you? If you want that, unless you want people to attack you for the +1/+1 counters. But kind of more of a situational call, I think. But also mono red mill, baby.
Yeah, no, I love that. I don't play a lot of curses. I definitely think there are homes for curses, but this seems like a really good one with trample too. That's very, very relevant, so that you're not just like, you want, because like the whole idea behind attacking matters is that your opponents are all dealing damage to each other. Like there's a lot of damage, so if everybody's just blocking everything, you're not going to succeed at that. So trample's one way to really make that happen.
Yeah, that was the thought. So sticking with the lean into the attacking matters theme, Calculating Lich, who is 4 black, so 6 mana cost, for a creature, zombie wizard with menace that reads, whenever a creature attacks one of your opponents, that player loses 1 life, 5/5. So in a world where the aura doesn't give trample, but you still want to incentivize people to attack anyone that isn't you, let's just ping them for some life loss.
I've seen this card. I've seen you play this card, and it really does add up, especially when attacking is happening every single turn. All those creatures turning sideways are at least pinging for 1.
And it has menace, so it does have some evasion for when it inevitably has to swing. But it was one of those cards that made me do a double take because, whenever a creature attacks, not just your creatures, I think that's like one of those abilities that's kind of easy to undervalue in Commander, similar to how, life loss, you look for it when you gain life equal to the life loss at the table.
Right.
Kind of a similar effect. So
yeah, really favors the multiplayer setting.
Yeah.
That way.
Which is this. This is Commander. Calculated was that. Calculating Lich. That was terrible. Anyway. Another suggestion I had for you, Chris, was Benefactor's Drought, which is 1 and a green for an instant that reads, untap all creatures until end of turn. Whenever a creature an opponent control blocks, draw a card.
So it untaps all creatures?
All creatures.
Wow.
So, yeah, in a pinch, you can use this as a shields up for you.
Sure.
If you do need to block. But ideally, if someone is swinging at someone else because they don't want to empower the Thantis Warweaver and give them all the +1/+1 counters, if they have blockers all of a sudden, they're going to want to, especially if the opponent's coming in with some lethal damage, and then you get to draw that many cards. So it's kind of like a twofer that leans into the, I'm going to be sneaky and calculating.
Yeah, that's a great idea. It's like one of those non-creature cards that you might want in a creature deck in this kind of a strategy, because it can also be a political tool, right? If you're playing and somebody has all of their creatures tapped, you could say, hey, would you like to block? We can create that opportunity. And it's also good when you don't have your Seedborn Muse online.
It is. Man, we really lean into the Seedborn Muse a bit. Can you tell it's a good card? But even, and I'm just realizing this because it does more, in the event that you did need to use it as a combat trick for itself, it is a cantrip. It replaces itself because it also just says draw a card.
Oh, it does. Okay, yeah.
So why not?
Right. Yeah, if it doesn't get used, you can just use it on the end step ahead of your turn.
Exactly.
Yeah. Love that.
The last recommendation, kind of 2 of them, really, and this is, chalk it up to me being cheeky, Chris, but anytime especially a commander, a Voltron commander, you're getting a lot of power and toughness onto that spider in this case. People are expecting you to swing with that. Maybe not so much expecting you to fling with that. Fling, 1 and a red for an instant. As an additional cost to cast the spell, sacrifice a creature. Fling deals damage equal to the sacrificed creature's power to any target. So you looked at me funny, so I'm going to throw a spider at your face.
Yeah, what a finisher, right? Yeah, if the attacks don't quite get there, your enormous spider that just got thrown by a giant something else.
I don't know. I mean, I didn't fling it. I'm not touching that thing. But there are a couple effects like this. If I was running one of these, I would probably also run Gravitic Punch, which is 3 and a red for a sorcery that reads target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target player. It has Jumpstart, which reads you may cast this card from your graveyard by discarding a card in addition to paying its other cost, then exile this card. So you do lose some of the versatility of it being an instant speed, kind of like gotcha with the spider throwing, but as far as not having to sacrifice Thantis in order to do the damage, that might be relevant, especially if you want to keep up, a scary board presence. Yeah. And then also it's got Jumpstart, so you can do it again if you want to.
Yeah, you could actually do it twice in one turn, right? So you swing in, you get one person with commander damage, and then you cast that spell twice, and you've now decimated the table.
Yeah.
Or exactly. Quadrumated the table.
Quadrumated.
Is that a word?
That's I don't know. Is there like an 8 version of that? Just because he has 8 legs?
Oh, there must be. It must be like Octomate.
Octomate.
Tell us if we're wrong. We're probably wrong, but tell us in the comments below.
Thanks. I'm looking forward to reading those. What about you, Chris? What are some of your suggestions for the goodest boy and his cat friend?
Yeah, thanks, Taylor. I wanted to stick with the Legendary Matters theme, so I really wanted to lean into that, and it was tough. You didn't leave a lot of options to go on, but I think if you were to include 1 5-drop in the deck, I might consider Ao, the Dawn Sky. Ao from Neon Dynasty. Ao the Dawn Sky is 3, a white and a white for a legendary creature Dragon Spirit. Flying and Vigilance. When Ao the Dawn Sky dies, choose one. Look at the top 7 cards of your library. Put any of number non-land cards with total mana value 4 or less from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest of the bottom of your library in a random order. Or put 2 +1/+1 counters on each permanent you control that's a creature or a vehicle. It's 5/4.
Wow.
I don't know how you're necessarily getting Ao dead, but if you do, every other non-land permanent is mana value 4 or less in this case, so you will be able to
at least get 1 trigger, hopefully. Yeah.
And if that, so that has a good way of sort of, making up for the fact that you no longer have a flying dragon, or you can put +1/+1 counters across the board.
I love that. Yeah. I don't know what I'm going to cut for it, but I will take a dragon that gives me good things.
And I joked about not wanting to necessarily get Ao dead, but it also is kind of a disincentive, for somebody to attack into you, right? If you're holding up that blocker, like...
That's a good point.
It kind of replaces itself.
Yeah, because the perceived threat of not knowing what you're going to trigger into, that's a good point.
Yeah. And it's a 5/4 with Vigilance, so Ao. Ao. All right, so second legendary recommendation. Oh, also from Strixhaven.
Nice.
Felisa, Fang of Silverquill. 2, a white and a black for a legendary creature vampire wizard with flying. It has Mentor. Whenever this creature attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on target attacking creature with lesser power. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, if it had counters on it, create X tapped 2/1 white and black inkling creature tokens with flying, where X is the number of counters it had on it, 3/2.
Oh no. Oh no.
Now, Yoshimaru, you're probably not getting the Mentor trigger that much. Yoshimaru is going to be probably a lot bigger, but it really does disincentivize the removal, I think.
Yeah, that's a lot of inklings.
So many +1/+1 counters to be had. Like you could just turn those into flyers.
Seems nice. And those are 2 ones, aren't they?
Yeah. So
oh no.
technically doubles the power on board. It's pretty cool.
And flying. Oh my god, that's a finisher. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sold.
Awesome. All right, one more recommendation. Also legendary. Also a 7-drop. I wanted to throw in Akroma's Memorial.
Yes.
Akroma's Memorial for 7 mana as a legendary artifact. Creatures you control have flying, first strike, vigilance, trample, haste, and protection from black and red.
Nice. With 8 tails, that's protection from Mardu.
That might be a meta call, but hey, you never know.
Fair. I do make meta calls.
But one thing about Voltron decks is they need to have that evasion. You have to be able to get in and connect with your commander, so it's a lot of keywords to get in there.
Yeah, and imagine if you are running Karn and then you make it a 7/7 that also has all of those keywords. Sorry.
Karn's back, baby.
No.
Well, Taylor, I think that brings us to the end of the episode, which means we get to talk about what we're doing for next week. Surprise reveal time.
I'm so excited. I think it's only fair that I went first for the episode. I won. I would like to hear what your commander is for next week first.
Very gracious of you, Taylor.
That's the least I can do. Quite literally.
All right. Well, for next week, I'm bringing back a fan favorite for you to play. I hope you enjoy piloting Zedru the Great-Hearted. 1, a blue, a red, and a white for a legendary creature Minotaur Monk. At the beginning of your upkeep, you gain X life and draw X cards, where X is the number of permanents that you own that your opponents control. Has an activated ability, blue, red, white. Target opponent gains control of target permanent you control. It's a 2/4.
Sounds like it's going to be a little self-serving. You're going to build a deck for me to give you things, Chris. I don't well, no ulterior motives, I'm sure.
Only good permanents to be handed over to your opponents in this
good
deck.
Permanents.
Only upside.
And that's permanents. That reads like lands too, right?
Yeah, so if you want to go ahead and ramp all of your opponents out, I suppose
Let's go.
Can technically do it. I don't know if that's ever been done in the history of Zedru the Great-Hearted.
Tune in next week to see that it still hasn't.
Just to give you an idea of what to expect with this deck, I wanted to feature a certain card, and you may be familiar with this one. The card is Role Reversal.
Oh my gosh. Cleverly working in the name of our show.
Did we peak too soon?
No, it's episode 4. 3. We did.
Role Reversal. Blue, blue, red for a sorcery. Exchange control of 2 targeted permanents that share a permanent type.
Legendary.
Just another way to shuffle the permanents around the board. I hope you enjoy.
I'm so excited, Chris. That's going to be awesome. Moving on to your deck for next week.
What have you got for me, Taylor?
Well, spring is in the air. We've just had the equinox. Spring equinox. That's what it is.
That's the thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. Anyway, I know you enjoy the great outdoors as much as the next guy, but I also know you have a certain hobby for fungi. Mycology? Is that it?
They call me a fun guy.
I'm sure they do.
That's a different show.
I'll just cut to the chase. Thelen of Havenwood, who is green for a legendary creature, elf druid. Each fungus creature gets +1/+1 for each spore counter on it. And it has an activated ability of black and green. Exile a fungus card from a graveyard and put a spore counter on each fungus on the battlefield. It's a 2/2. I know what you're thinking. I don't know what to think. And I'll help you with that, because the card that I'd like to highlight what this deck will do with is Mindbender Spores. 2 and a green for a creature fungus wall that reads, whenever Mindbender Spores blocks a creature, put 4 fungus counters on that creature. That creature gains, this creature doesn't untap during your untap step if it has a fungus counter on it, and at the beginning of your upkeep, remove a fungus counter from this creature. It's a 0/1.
I gotta be honest, I still don't know what's going on. Are we giving our opponents fungus counters? That's amazing.
What is this overlap? You're giving me land, I'm giving you... Or wait, I'll be giving you land, you'll be giving me fungus counters.
There's a lot of fun to be had. I think it's going to be fun, guy.